Hi guys, Tech here, and I wanted to do my first build guide for Path of Exile 2. This is going to be the main character that I've been playing. I'm currently at 78. I have done up to T11 maps. This is currently what you're seeing as a T5. I didn't die in the T11 maps. We are quite strong on the Armor and Evasion side. I did spend, I got very lucky with my crossbow, and I want to preface that I crafted it myself. I got a +5 and I got a percent fizz that was fairly high, and then I just exalt slammed and got really lucky with the other rolls. Big thing that I want to cover about the mercenary is kind of how to play it. Right now, what I found the most effective use is using gas grenades on normal pack, then shooting out explosive grenades, then followed by explosive shot, which is what you're going to see the majority of time. Now, you'll also see that occasionally I will use a totem. Totem does have mana regen on it, so it's more of helping me sustain from what I know is going to be a slog, as long as it can stay up, which is a challenge. The next thing that you'll notice is that sometimes we use oil grenades. Oil grenades are really good for mass little guys and for bosses, as it gives us another source of ignite and it gives us exposure. Now, most monsters we do not need exposure for, we just have enough damage to just obliterate them. But if you don't have enough damage to just obliterate them, you can add oil grenades into the mix. However, I will let you know that they do get expensive having the oil grenades in the mix. So it's one of those things where you do have to kind of pay attention to exactly where you're at and exactly what is going on to see if it is actually going to be a good fit for you or not. If it isn't going to be a good fit to use the oil grenades, then just stick to gas grenades, explosive rounds, and explosive shot. If you want to make it a little cheaper, you can technically just do gas grenades and explosive shot. I found it's just a lot less damage. So it depends on the damage, like the mobs that I'm facing, which combination of those that you'll see. Most of the time I do all three. Sometimes if it's like stuff that I know is going to just die real easy, I'll just do gas grenade and explosive shot it. Or sometimes if I know it's going to be really tanky, I'll preload oil grenades and that kind of stuff. The other thing kind of to be aware of is it's very easy to get surrounded on this character. I have moved on from cluster trap, which was the best I'm surrounded, get out of dodge mechanic. I did feel like I needed to do that before the dodge roll changed. After the dodge roll change, it actually feels okay to just dodge roll it. Kind of the main source of how it's playing. Other thing I would like to mention is overall dynamic culling and the movement of the character seems a little off as far as quality, and that's just from screen capturing. I realize is I have to turn HDR off for it to look like HDR for you guys, so I do apologize about that. Let's get into the skill tree a little bit so I can show you kind of what I would recommend. I would go here absolutely first. This is your clear speed node. This really helps with the campaign. Then I would get Culling Strike, and then I would get Decimating Strike in that order. As far as the final Ascendancy, I will probably go back to Witchbane. Now, when you're starting out, I would come off this right side of the tree and just get these nodes because you need so much strength and dex, especially early on, and these nodes aren't that great. So I would just come in, grab these, grab this, and then keep pathing down. That'll get you to where you want to be faster, which is what you're trying to do is rush it over here to this grenade node. So you're trying to rush over to this wheel right here and get this fuse duration. The fuse duration is especially nice because before you get explosive shot, you have to wait for the fuses on the grenades to actually stop. Once they stop, they detonate. So explosive shot speeds the entire process up. Before explosive shot, you do have to rely on the fuses themselves. So this is very important early on. Once you get this, you're going to go through this cluster wheel and grab Grenadier. The cooldown is really nice. This is something I also found through testing is two-handed damage as long as it does not have the melee tag. As long as it doesn't have the melee or the melee, however you want to say it, it works for crossbows, for grenades, for everything. So abuse it because it scales better than proj damage scales. These are normally 12% nodes versus 10% nodes. So just something to keep in mind. So after I get this wheel, I would go and get some defenses. I get some life recovery, I get a battle hardened, and I get backup plan. From there, I would come over and work my way towards this two-handed node over here, because again, it scales better than proj damage scales. And you do want quite a bit of damage early. You do need Molten Vault, I believe it is the first boss that has an actual DPS check. It is timed. And if you don't do enough damage, you basically die. I found out that the hard way while testing a chaos build. You do want to get your damage up fairly early. And then you want to kind of mess with these defenses. Once you do that, you want to pat down here and you want to get this where you get the 15% extra. Then I'd recommend getting these 2 nodes. These 2 nodes are huge. And then getting these 3 crit nodes. Tainted Strike is my next node, but I'd recommend getting it earlier than what I did. This 8% of evasion as armor node down there is very, very strong. I did also test out doing totems. And totems felt okay, but they just cost too much, I feel like, for this build. Then you're going to want to grab those crit nodes up there once you're past where I'm at. And that should make it where you have a pretty well balanced tree all the way through. You got some defenses, you got a lot of offense, and then you're adding defenses more when you need them. So you want to get the core of your defenses done before you start going into crit, especially. And I think that's just the way to do it. Also, I did not realize how good those other these nodes over here are. These nodes are insane. Get those. Basically, once you have your defenses from the tree in a pretty good space, I would get those. You do want quite a bit of damage. You do want quite a bit of survivability. Currently, I can't remember if I pressed C on this character, but I'm sitting at like 60, in the 60s of both armor and evasion. Now, that might not seem ideal, but that's fairly survivable. I can take some hits when I actually take them. Of course, dodge roll is still your best friend, and you want to dodge roll as much as humanly possible because that just makes the overall experience that much better. And so you kind of just want to dodge roll as much as humanly possible. Then you'll want to use the mechanics really are just don't get backed into a corner. As long as you don't get backed into a corner, you can normally survive it. And the other thing that you want to really watch is trying to get those big calls off. So if you see a lot of little stuff, man, hit. If you can get one of those Zealous Inquisitions to pop and you get your explosion going, it just makes this round bearable. As a crossbow person, this was like a perfect thing for me to grab, for me to realize they were all trash. Unfortunately, all of them were trash. And so I was like, I can get that or I can reroll. I didn't realize how expensive reroll was without being spec'd into it. It was really expensive. I would have loved to have that chaos. And so instead I settled for a ring and a helmet, I think, was because nothing was really that appealing. Most of the time I've gotten exalts or Orb of Chance or something that's, good, that's worth getting. A transmute's nothing. That was kind of disappointing. So that's kind of the idea behind the build. And the play styles, you kind of want to play back and you kind of want to play smart. At least that's the way I play it. You can play it more aggressively, and I have. It's just I prefer to play this kind of character this way because you're that much less likely to get surrounded. The more tactical that you can kind of be with the Grenadier, I feel like is the way that you're going to have the best success overall. The other thing is this build is very well tuned for bossing, which is especially nice. Bossing in this game feels great, and it's a real shame that you don't have a boss in every map. I would much prefer that to tracking down rares is, kill the boss, or do it a combination of the two. You can either kill all the rares or you can kill the boss, and there's just a boss in every map. The other big thing that I would really like just from a quality of life perspective is to have an affinity on waystones. I think waystones and or checkpoints on the maps are the biggest change over. Or I keep saying maps. I'm going to say that it's just, I've been calling them maps for 15 years or so now. So I'm going to just call them maps because that's what they are. They're maps, but they're called waystones now. But having the affinity set where I can actually dedicate a tab to them would feel amazing. Even if they want me to buy a new tab, that's fine. But give me the affinity so I can use it for now until they make a tab that I can purchase, sort them, because that is the biggest hurdle I feel like right now in slowing down like you're putting everything into your stash and sorting and all is that we don't have an actual affinity that we can use for waystones. I also think the maps currently are a little too big for not having checkpoints in them. And they don't have to be all over. You just need basically like the corners or around the corners of the maps where you can just don't have to backtrack so much. You have a lot of backtracking currently. It just feels like it's wasting your time. All right, so I didn't realize none of your stats and none of your gear can be imported. So I'm going to go over that real quick with you. So we have 100 spirit. We have a little bit of mana and not nearly as much as I'd like, and a little bit of life. We are at 61% armor, 60% evasion, capped in all reses except for chaos, and we're halfway there on chaos. We do have 47% less freeze duration on self, flask effects, charm effects, movement speed, and enemy critical bonus. On our helmet, we're really looking for life and res, And then if we can get extra armor and evasion, it's a very big bonus. That's kind of what we have there. And we also have crit chance, which is really nice since we're starting to go into crit nodes. For our chest, this is life. The dex roll is nice. It's not needed, but it's nice. Then I have fire, chaos, and lightning on it because it has implicit lightning on the expert cloak mail base. It has implicit lightning. And you'll notice everything is scaling up armor, evasion, and energy shield. That's just to get more defenses, as that's really, really important. Then we have life. We have a little bit of max mana, fire res, chaos res, and a leech. Most of our damage is fizz, and then it is converted, so leech does apply. Boots. Our boots are really, really good. I got 30 move speed. I got max life, I got strength, I got cold res, and I have freeze duration on you, which is really, really good. The gear that needs the most work is my jewelry and belt. Obviously, the spell damage and the max ES is doing nothing for us, and the 1.1 life regen per second is doing nothing for us whatsoever. So the only rolls that actually matter on this is the max life and the chaos res and the mana regen rate. So eventually I will replace that with something that is better. I just haven't found anything, and I haven't really gone deep because I have this ring that's going to be hard to replace just because it has so much lightning res on it, but it doesn't have a life roll. So I can exalt slam it, hope for a life roll, and hope for a good life roll, or I can just buy a new piece of jewelry, and I don't need quite that much lightning res. I believe I'm over capped at the moment, or I can balance it out between these multiple pieces instead of just on one piece. The other ring is not very good. It just has some res on it. That's it. It doesn't have life, doesn't really have anything that's beneficial other than the elemental resistance and lightning resistance. Our belt does have armor on it, which is nice. It does have some max life. It does have a little fire. It does have a little cold. Again, those things are nice, not needed. I am using a slow charm. Once we get 3 charm belts, what I want to do is have a slow, a bleed, and a poison, because those are the 3 things that are probably the most annoying to my build. It'll either be slow bleed poison or slow poison then shock. It'll be one of those 3 that I'll end up probably using long term. Now, our crossbow is really, really good. I crafted this myself. Big things you want to look for on a crossbow when you're crafting is plus level to all projectile skills. That does roll up to +7, I believe. And then you want to get high fizz. The 94% increased physical damage is an okay roll. Like if you look at the tiers, it's a tier 4, so it can go quite a bit higher. The physical damage is a T7, so that's a pretty high roll. The projectiles is a T4, so it's a mid roll. And I could technically divine this and try to get 6 projectiles, but I'm just gonna look for my next crossbow instead of focusing on this one. That I slotted my gems specifically to increase fizz more, and I highly recommend you do that on your crossbow as well. But this gives you an idea of the gear. The other thing on flasks that I recommend doing is the charges gained per second. I don't know what the cap roll rate is. I probably need to keep rolling them, because I think you can get like 0.25, and that would be optimal, is to get 0.25 with increased recovery rate or increased amount recovered. One of those 2 rolls I think are the best options. Skill gems and what I have slotted in everything. So with gas grenade, I had that linked with inspiration just to make it cost a little less because we are kind of spamming it. Corrosion, which makes sure that we are breaking armor as well as applying the poison. Then bursting plague, which applies an additional degen on anything that is in the poison cloud, which again just makes sure that we're getting anything that you can do that will cause damage over time, especially as you scale higher, is really, really good, especially when you can scale it off fizz. For flash grenade, this is my oh crap, I need to get out of here button. So it's attached to overpower to make it where they stun. The execute, which does more damage when they are on low life. I do use this sometimes on bosses. And then brutality, because brutality just adds a whole bunch of fizz, and this is a pure fizz skill, no conversion. Wire ballista with lacerate to cause bleeding. Ancestral urgency to make it go down fast. So if you look at my totem placement speed, it's pretty quick. I just can't spam it because mana. And then font mana to give me a regen, because that's something that this build struggles with, and there's not really any good regen nodes on this side of the tree, which I think needs to change. Is we do need some mana regen on the south side of the tree. The trees are not very well balanced currently. Then on explosive grenade, we do have fire pin, because it is doing mainly fire damage. There's an 80% conversion. We are adding heft. Heft does 30% more maximum physical damage, which is a pretty large portion of our damage. Life tap, so it comes off of my life instead of my mana because, again, I'm going to be using this a lot. So just like Gas Grenade, I want to control the cost. And then Conk Effect, which, again, is just a massive scaler. On my auras, so I'm running 2 auras. I'm running Time of Need, which is by far the MVP in my book because it removes all elemental ailments. I have Fast Forward, so it doesn't last as long, and it affects the cooldown duration here. So it makes it where it comes up much shorter. So the default is 11 seconds. Mine's down to 7.56 seconds. Then Vitality, just to give me some regen. Then I have Defiance Banner. That is with Precision to give me some accuracy, and Clarity to give me, again, more mana regen because we don't really have good sources of that on this side of the tree. Explosive Shot is linked to Fire Infusion, Nimble Reload, and Martial Tempo because I want it to come out as fast as humanly possible and reload as fast as humanly possible because that's my main source of popping off my explosions. Then Oil Grenade is linked to Magnified Effect, Strip Away, and Fiery Death. Strip Away is because this has exposure on it. The Magnified Effect is just to cover more of the area. And then Fiery Death is just to help cause explosions. It's really unfortunate. But I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you on the next one. Till then, stay sane out there, Exiles.